Welcome to the Rooted in Light podcast. I am your host, Tuesday Rivera, and I am joined today by Cristo. Hey, G, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Tues?
I'm so glad to have you here. Some of you might remember G from episode 2, which was 1,000 Facets of Goddess. And so we are here today to talk about the conscious devouring mother. And if you all are watching us on YouTube, you see the expression that just crossed G's face. And I wanted to have G on today for a couple of reasons. One is we've talked about our mothers quite a bit together as people. And she, in terms of she as goddess, is very much a tie that binds G and I together. And so when I decided to do this webinar in June around the conscious devouring mother, I was really hoping G would attend and then wanted to talk to them right afterwards about what they thought about this topic of the conscious devouring mother. And so then I thought, well, let's do a follow-up conversation and have at it here, because of course in a webinar, right, we got to interact. I got to see your facial expressions, but I didn't necessarily get to hear a lot of what was on your mind, G. So what might you say? Anything you might say to introduce yourself or about the conscious devouring mother, and then I will jump into why I did the webinar and what I think people should know.
Yes. Well, I'm so excited to be back on my favorite podcast and talking about just the devouring mother has been such an interesting pivot for me in how I'm thinking about goddess in a lot of different ways, because I think understanding goddess as a mother figure, as earth as a mother figure, was like a really foundational or pivotal moment with my relationship with goddess. But on this webinar, we got into some like archetypal challenges with the devouring mother that truly took days to unfold for me. Like we were in the webinar and I was just like, yeah, it's cool. Took a note. And then something happened and I was like, oh, that's what that is. Oh dear. Oh gosh. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about it. Really excited to get into it. And yeah, I'll also just share that recently I sort of had a deeper understanding of my own mother, like the lineage of my mother wound, which I also feel like is a ripple from the conversation of the webinar. So yeah, I'm just delighted to be here.
Well, I'm so glad to have you. And you know, because you've done some goddess work with me in some of the goddess classes, I like to refer to goddess as a she who, right?
Yes.
She who, in this case, would be she who devours.
Right.
And there is such she could be she who gives blessings and boons. She could be she who annihilates. She could be she who makes love. She who gives birth, right? She who creates. There are lots of she who's, but I really wanted specifically to talk about this idea of she who devours, because it is such, in two ways, an unlooked for and untalked about aspect of the mother role. And kind of conversely, so we don't talk about this dynamic of being devoured or the mother as devourer, but conversely, we kind of, at the same time as not talking about it, we really vilify it, right? So both things are really true. And I was at a retreat and I heard a woman say something like, "Oh, I just live for my kids. You know, they're everything to me." And I saw your eye go again.
Sorry,
and I had the same reaction. I was like, I think this is not good. Like, I think that somehow we kind of want mothers to say that, but that's not good. So it's like, it's like in some ways, I think mothers can't win, which is how then I went into this particular webinar, because I thought, well, you know, I could judge that person I was across the circle from and say like, oh, that's just not good. And instead what I did was I went like, okay, but that's a really common maternal thing. And so where do I do that with my kids? Where do I make it about me with my children? And how can I bring that more to consciousness and actually make some choices, right? And is there a way that the devouring can be good? And so I really kind of took that on? Like, what would it look like if we were conscious about this devouring mother archetype? And then,
Yeah.
of course, because, I turned right to goddess, I was like, let's talk about it in different goddess faces. If she has 1,000 faces, which is what you were here to talk about before, if she has 1,000 faces, let's talk about these different devouring faces and bringing them into the light and like actually using them and working with them and not being kind of moved by these unconscious forces that are real.
Right.
And so that's where I landed.
Yeah. And I think just the power of like acknowledging the shadow, right? And not trying to change or avoid or be so pious that there is no shadow. It's just that like everything has a shadow. And how do you work with it and how do you build your awareness around it is definitely something that I took away from the webinar for sure.
I want to talk about rage.
Okay.
I just want to, because I feel like we should just dive right in.
Let's just get into it.
Let's just go. So one of the things we talked about in the webinar that I wanted to bring in and talk, like just actually talk about it versus kind of present about it. I wanted to talk with you about it. So you and I both have a relationship with the goddess Kali.
Yes.
Many people know the goddess Kali, right? Like this is, I mean, she's like one of the most famous goddess figures in the world, right? Like whether you worship her or not, most folks know about her.
Right.
But there is this face of Kali, like, right? She's bloodthirsty, like she's holding a head and, she has a garland of skulls as a necklace and around her waist are these arms and and, kind of like more modern interpretation of that is like she is death to the ego. Right. So like, she kind of brings her, she looks really fearsome. She's got like the, she's like the one you think of, like with the tongue and the, friends, you should watch this on YouTube. We're making all sorts of expressions
really great
here.
I know.
So
embodying her.
Right. She's got the teeth. She's got the tongue. Like she's like the whole thing.
Skull necklace. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Like you just like, and she's like, And so, right. And so like, there's this modern way of thinking about Kali, which is like destroyer of ego, like takes from you with illusions from you, doesn't take anything you need, but takes what you want, right? Like that's very modern, but she's a very ancient goddess. Like she's before Hinduism, right? Like she's like of a shamanic lineage. And like the truth is, she also takes some hard shit, right? She is destroyer of things like earthquakes, like tsunamis, like her. She's not just a destroyer of ego. She could be a destroyer of a very life. And so like, that's a real part of her. So versus not looking at that face or somehow making it okay, she only takes our ego. It's like, what would it look like to actually say, no, like sometimes like the shadow side is like undiluted rage. So if we would to say one polarity of her expression of rage would be sacred rage, right? That which comes when a demon is in the world or when something wrong has come, right? Sacred rage, really understand that. I've been feeling that a lot recently around injustice to women around sexual violence. Like my rage is like, like I worked in the field years ago. Like I can usually roll with it. Like recently I've just been like pissed off, right? But it feels sacred versus toxic anger, which we also all know, right? Yeah. What do you know about sacred rage and toxic anger, G?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about that since the webinar, and I think you told Kali's origin story, right? Which I remembered the parts that I liked, and then I remembered the back half of the story is that like her rage was so big that she just like was raging on for taking down everything, and had to be sort of like composed in some way. And so I really have been thinking about that because I've been in relationship with like the sacred rage part of Kali, like just like I'm moving from my heart, and even if it hurts, it's what it's supposed to be, right? Or, I've lost something massive. It's so hard to grapple with, but I'm here to like surrender to the process, right? In the best of my abilities. But then thinking about the toxic anger, I was like, oh no. And the way that I've been trying to relate to it is that it's like unalchemized rage. where it's
Mm.
like this feeling inside of you that is just like so angry because you're just not in control and you can't surrender or submit to that lack of control.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so like that's how I've been trying to understand it since that
Interesting.
conversation. But also I said this in the webinar and I'll say it now, like even though Kali is like one of my goddesses, right? I don't really do rage. Like
Ah,
I don't really
huh.
do rage. Yeah, you and my partner love to make that face at me when I say that.
Oh,
I'm like I think
uh-huh.
when I think of times when I'm rageful, right? It's all justice based. Like it's all
Right.
anger at injustice, anger at systems, anger at things, or, even in an interpersonal relationship, there's like three that I can think of that like really elicit rage from me. But more often than not, I'm trying to just like be on the ground. I'm trying to
Uh-huh.
not have like to like I don't really know how to work with rage. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like it makes me feel like there's no control, when you have that rage. And so as I'm grappling with like what does it mean to have rage, and then we're like sacred rage, toxic anger, where is the middle? How do I do this? What are the directions? But yeah, rage just feels really tricky as somebody who was born into a female body and who I just don't fully know what to do with it. You know what I mean? Like, because I would love to yell at lots of people, but it's not super effective. It's not effective, like it's not a
Right.
strategic tool. So yeah, I think that's sort of what I'm sitting with all of it.
Like, not only is it not effective, it probably wouldn't get you what you think it's going to get you.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
there's something, I mean, there are like two pieces. One is like being women and not being allowed to express,
Right.
and therefore being afraid of our anger.
Right.
Right. And like as if it will overtake us, which it could, right?
Yeah.
Like that is entirely possible. And many of us have histories and circumstances where like justifiably go rage for a couple of weeks and that won't be enough, right? Based on what you've experienced. And what we also know is that it's not generally anger that actually moves things, right?
Right.
It actually isn't, and I think you said something else so interesting, which is like, I've been comfortable being angry about circumstances or systems, which is where many of us who are born in female bodies, like then can find I think it's a great channel for our rage, right? Like, and yet it still leaves it unexpressed on behalf of ourselves.
Right.
Right. There's something about like, what would it look like to express what is sacred rage on behalf of ourselves? Because
Yeah.
my sense is that if we don't express the sacred rage, it often becomes toxic anger. Right. Like it's actually just a little bit of a line down, like not expressed. Okay. Then we just kind of get pissed off about everything.
Right.
Right.
And it comes out sideways.
Comes
Right.
out
Like
sideways.
it's not. But then I'm like, well, where do I express it? I'm like, what's the space to express it? And I was at a retreat last week and there was a moment of that where it was sort of like, how can you express your victim narrative, right? And I was able to sort of like drop into the rage part that lives in my neck and really just like say all of the things. And it was different than in therapy because I was in community with people I really trust, but that like release felt really good, right? So like how do we make more space for that? How can I give myself space for that? I don't know what the directions are. And there is truly so much to be mad about. Like there is in the world, in my own interpersonal life, there's plenty of things I can be angry about. Like, but I just, I don't know what to do with it.
Well, I think that's fair, right? I think you don't know what to do because it's not something we let folks really express, right?
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, and it's hard to parse through like what's on behalf of the world, which is justifiable, which might be
Right.
sacred. What is like I'm just putting it on the world because I can't do it for myself. What is like I can't do it for myself because I'm in an unsafe situation. It's, I think there's something about going, like you said, you went to that place in your neck. And I think there's really something
Yeah.
about going to the body,
Yes.
right? Like, I
Yes.
think, part of what I learned from my teacher, Sally Kempton, was like, whatever the emotion, like locate it in the body and go into it, right? Go into the sensation of it, right? So like if anger feels like a burning in your stomach, like go into your stomach and feel the burning. Like don't try to paper over it. Don't say why I shouldn't, right? But like actually go into the physical sensation of it to inhabit it versus like pushing it away. And you know, I think the other thing I want to be real honest about, because you mentioned the victim stance, is sometimes my sacred rage moves into toxic anger when I choose not to do anything. When like actually it's my choice not to do anything. And then it comes out sideways, right? Like I think this is often the case when people stay in relationships they need to leave. And they're like, oh, this person does this, they do this, they do this. There is, I think, like real legitimacy and like seeing things clearly and being like, I don't deserve that. And I mean, provided there's not a physical threat to oneself, right? At some point it's like, you know, like you got to go then, right? Or you can stay mad. But like then it's actually not about like sacred rage, it's actually about toxic anger.
Toxic anger.
Right?
Yeah, that's so right. And I think like, first of all, just like classic G and twos where you're just like, yeah, go into your body. And I'm like, right, go into my body. Right. That's how I feel the rage. Right. Okay. Duh. Thank you. And that is so real. So thank you for that. And yeah, I think I think that's a really great example. We all know people who are in relationships who are talking shit about the other person, who are all wound up and worked up, but then they stay. And I am actually really working an ego edge with that because given my past, I'm like, just break up and move on, like get it moving, you know? And like, that's just not people's disposition for a lot of different reasons that are attachment based, that are financial, that are situational. And so like, I feel for that, but also, yeah, like that eats you alive. Like the toxic rage will eat you, or toxic anger will eat you alive. And so those kids that you like are staying in your marriage for, you're taking time away from them by being, you know, in your toxic anger, by eroding your body in that way, would be my hot take.
I love it. I love it. And I just want to like own it, right?
Yeah.
Like I just actually want to own it. My mother said to me after I left my 21-year marriage, she said, oh, I knew you were in trouble. She said, because one time I heard you talk to him and I thought, you can't talk to people like that. Yeah. And I was mortified. Like I try really hard to be kind in my words. I try to be thoughtful. I try to be intentional. I was so unaware, right? And I felt so trapped. Gee, he was not trapping me. Yeah. That was actually not true. That was my felt experience. It was not true. Yeah. But what was, I mean, for lots of, like you said, lots of good reasons. But like, I just want to like own, like I've been there. I have stayed too long and somehow blamed it on the other person. And that justified my anger. Yeah. Which, you know, like 8 years on, I understand is not the case.
Yeah. You know? And that's part of the process, right? Like that's just part of it. Yeah.
It's just part of it. And I think, you know, like people do lots of things, but I always think going to the body. But I also think, and then I promise we're going to keep moving, but I also think that there's something about telling the truth to yourself that is a practice of working with your anger, like actually telling the truth to yourself. Like, I want this, I don't want this, I like this, I don't like this. This worked for me, this didn't work for me. That pisses me off, that doesn't. Like there's something actually about not gaslighting yourself. Yes. That I think actually helps you understand what is sacred rage versus what is toxic anger. Yes. And if sacred rage is always your go-to, you can bet it's got a few little tendrils of toxic anger.
Toxic anger under that's a Martha Beck thing, right? Where it's like if you're gonna just be honest with yourself. Yes. Right? Yeah, you taught me that via Martha Beck. And I think that even if you're not going to move from it, even if you're not going to tell anybody else, like to cultivate a trusting relationship with yourself, which may lead to you being comfortable in your sacred rage. Like you just have to be honest with yourself all the time, you know, like as much as you can, even if it's just with yourself. And that's been really helpful.
That is the place to start. Honest with yourself. Yes. Because it is really revolutionary. Yeah.
But I'm so good at being Delulu. Like I'm so good at it. Like it's really bananas.
Well, I think that everybody is.
Yeah.
Just to be fair, I think that everybody is. Like, actually, sometimes I think to myself, I was watching the show with Gibran, 9 Perfect Strangers. Have you seen this?
Yes, a long time ago, but it's so good.
Oh my gosh. So we just watched the first season. Apparently there's such season. But I said to him, I'm like, what would that be like to just have people see you and tell you the truth about yourself and actually just like get rid of your stories about yourself? I felt like, oh, that would be amazing. And then wait, that makes me feel deeply uncomfortable. I'm not sure I'm ready for people to tell me what they're seeing, but I want it. So anyway, whole point is we're all Delulu, and the practice is telling yourself the truth. And it can really start with very small things. What do I actually want to eat? What do I actually want to do today? I might do something different or eat something different, but what is it that I want?
Exactly. And I think that's been the powerful point for me where I'm like, okay, like I might actually not do what I want, but at least I'm clear on what that might have been.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's been helping me sort of ground into just like my purpose and generalized desire, you know?
Well, okay, we'll do one on desire. We're not going to do that today because I could go there too.
Oh my God. So much to say about that.
I'm going to keep us moving on this conscious devouring mother piece. And we're going to talk about the next thing. So we talked about sacred rage versus toxic anger. We're going to talk about holding versus grasping. And I think this can be a particular gendered phenomenon when it comes to mothering. And I should have said at the outset of this podcast, like 2 things. One is like we're going to talk about mothering, but actually we mean caring for. And it doesn't actually have to be for little people. It could be caring for your partner, right? So like this is like all kind of places you care or love. So you could have toxic anger toward a partner. You could hold a partner versus grasp a partner. It's just the devouring mother is the construct that's being used right now in psychology to describe a certain set of behaviors. And so I should have said that. We're not only talking about mothering, and also we're not trying to badmouth anybody. We got all of these things. And so when I think about holding versus grasping, I think about a particular way that we can move into love relationships that's like about holding people tight to us versus, or grasping them to us versus kind of like holding them, right? So again, if you're watching YouTube, it's like 2 different motions. One is like holding as my hands are open and something's resting in my hands versus grasping, like pulling it towards us. And the goddess story here, the kind of archetype here would be Demeter and Persephone, which are the Greek pantheon. Are they Greek or Roman? I get confused.
I think it's Greek.
Okay, great. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So Persephone's gorgeous little maiden in the meadow, and Hades comes up from hell, grabs her, kidnaps her, and takes her away to live with him and be his queen of hell. This is a terrible story, right? This is a violent story, just to be clear.
Yes.
One could expect her mother Demeter, who has sacred rage, right? At that point, she is grief-stricken. She's afraid. She doesn't know where her daughter has gone. And when she finds out that Persephone's been married to Hades and like she's not going to come back, she punishes the world, right? So she's a goddess of food and ag and fertility, and so it becomes barren, right? And so she punishes the world until she can get her daughter back. Now, couple of things. What story shifts, but Persephone eats something down there. So like she goes to Zeus, blah, blah, blah. Zeus says, yes, you can come back. But Persephone eats pomegranate seeds or something down there. And so she has to reside part of the year in Hades with Hades. But in some stories, like she's kind of cool with that, right? She's like, I'm the queen of the underworld. But her mother is like, no, right? No, that can't be. And so, and in that way kind of keeps Persephone bound to her mother's happiness and what her mother wants for her, which again, that I think we can see a lot in parenting, but I feel like we can see it a lot in love relationships. Care versus control in love relationships, or that which looks like care, but is actually control in love relationships. Like that is a really fine line. Holding versus grasping in love relationships is a really fine line. What would you say to that?
I had not heard or thought about, I don't think I'd heard this story until the webinar. And it definitely is the one that it has been like marinating with me the most.
Say more.
I think the delicate dance between holding and grasping is definitely one that I am like now looking in deeper to, right? Because I am a like a giver, like I like to show up with my time and with my energy. And I think it's important to like, this story has invited me to consider, am I showing up for me, or am I showing up for myself, or am I showing up for somebody else? Like, am I showing up because I think I have am I showing up for abundance with care to just witness and be there with my person? Or am I showing up because I feel like if I don't go, they're not going to want to be with me anymore, or I'm going to miss something, or things like that.
Yeah.
I also think,
can you just say that one more time? I think that's really important.
Yeah. So as I'm showing up, like when I'm showing up for my person, when I'm really throwing down, it's important for me to ask myself, am I showing up because I'm trying to meet a need, really be open, abundant, and witnessing them where they are? Or am I showing up because I'm grasping? I feel like if I don't go, they're going to be mad, or our relationship's going to change, or someone is going to fill that space. That is like a real conversation that I think I've had with myself, but this story really helped kind of crystallize. I also think that it's a really great goddess framework for folks who are in polyamory, because there is like, everybody does polyamory differently. But I think the push and pull of it with your partner is just like the jealousy and the time and the space. And so, are you grasping for time and space because you think that if you don't get it, you're not going to get any more of it? Or how can you hold your own needs, name your needs, and also hold space for your partner having their needs met in other places? And I think it's hard, but I think it is.
Yes.
It is the cycle of like, it's like the question of giving and taking, right? Like it's just it's hard.
It's really hard. And, as you were talking, I was like, and it's like at that example you gave with polyamory, and, correct me if I'm misunderstanding or if there's a nuance here, but like part of what I heard you say is like, there's like the holding versus grasping with your partner or partners, but there's also like the holding versus grasping with yourself. And like, are you holding yourself well? Are you don't even like, how is that active in you is almost like the first place to look, right?
1000%. Yeah. Yes. Like I'm in a partner relationship that is polyamorous for the first time. And so I'm learning a lot about what it means to be open in that way, and also have like a partner, a primary partner. And just so much of what I'm learning is about my own nervous system and my own anxieties and fears. And like, I just have this wonderful person who just like continually shows up for me and is able to like really meet my need. And still I have this like grasping fear that arises, and it's really in my body, which surprises me. And so I think, it's about, to be able to hold with abundance and with an open heart, you really have to be able to be in right relationship with yourself and hold yourself with that abundance,
Right.
And we did an exercise where we like gripped a pen and then ungripped a pen, right, on the webinar. And there was something about the physicality of that where it's like, like the grip doesn't allow things to flower. Like it doesn't allow things to move. And so that has just been, I've just been thinking a lot about that.
I did that pen thing. I like it because it's like some of these become concepts, right? Like, oh, am I holding or am I grasping? And like, there's something like physical. Like, I mean, like we know it. Like, I think you can feel it in your heart. You can feel, or I'm going to suggest to folks, maybe if it's a long-term pattern, you can't. But I know when I'm actually giving to get versus actually giving freely. Right. Like when there's an inherent transaction in it, I'm doing this because I expect something from you, or it's like the image that comes into my mind is like, like passing something over to somebody and like taking it back, so they like have to come closer to you to get it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so and I'm so glad you said that, because this can feel like, I think what I'd like any listener to is like, where do you grasp? Where do you have toxic anger? Obviously, you also have sacred rage. obviously you also hold, but it's
Right.
so easy to see where other people do these things.
Right. But
And
where do
like,
you?
we all
Yeah.
do them. We
Right.
all do them. And it's like, okay, just like bring it to the light. Oh, here's me
Yep.
giving to get.
And how
Right.
can you witness it without judgment? Right.
Right.
Like it's this, I don't think the invitation isn't to be like, figure out your shadows and do something about it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, just witness yourself and see where it exists and move with integrity from there. Like
Yeah.
maybe you will keep grasping because that's just what makes you like feel safe, right, in this
Right.
moment. I feel like with kids, that has to be the hardest, right? Like I am an aspiring parent, and I just like, I don't know, man. That the grasping is going to be real tough. Like
It
the
is.
letting them walk. I don't want them to walk in the middle of the street. I'm worried about sunburns, but the poison in the sunscreen. Like I literally don't know how people do it. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately it just is too overwhelming and you just got to pick, right? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like, well,
Yeah.
I could worry about all the million things all day long, or I could try to parent another day. But it's not easy.
Yeah.
No, I would say this, like for me, this holding versus grasping, is parenting is like the place, because there is a
Yeah.
truth. Like there is actually a place, G, like you just said, where grasping is important. I'm going to grasp you and get you out of that street. Like
Right.
actually
Right.
it's needed. That
Yeah.
is something that is needed. And so it does become, as they get older and you're making all of these decisions. But I find that once you have an idea, like hopefully you've done some conscious parenting, for me, it then gets really tricky. It gets really slippery. It gets really difficult. So the other day, my daughter and I had a little thing, and I said, like you made this agreement with me and you didn't keep it, and I'm really upset. Right. And, so, she comes back, the lawyer. Well, I think you thought it was an agreement and I did not think it was an agreement. Until I was like, okay, yeah, I got you. That's fine. Next time we'll actually be really clear on the language, whether we're making an agreement or not. But then, so, okay. But then, my daughter's 17 for listeners. But then I actually thought, okay, wait, she didn't think we had an agreement. And I believe that. She didn't want to think we had an agreement, right? Like it's all... But it was really, really subtle, because I thought, I'm mad at her for not keeping an agreement. And it's really easy for me to think I'm raising a child. Like part of my job as a parent is to make her be a good human being, or help her to be a kind, empathic, considerate, keeps her agreements human being, right? Like I could get onto a parenting trip, right, around that like I'm trying to raise a child in the world who's a good person and a good citizen. But then, gee, if I'm real honest, like that's true.
Yeah.
But it's actually a little bit more about me. I am the kind of parent, I'm the kind of person who raises a good child, right? So her keeping her agreements was actually not about her character at all. It was actually about my character and my ability to parent her, which is like all sorts of messed up, right? It's very grasping. Like it's like, and I don't think, I'm not a parent who you would ever see, like being overly involved in their kid's life. I'm not a helicopter parent. That's not how I roll. But it's still her behavior. I think it says something about me, about my character. And that's where I begin to grasp, right?
Yeah.
And parenting is the really hard place to move with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we do one more before we go?
Yes, of course.
Okay. All right. Because I can't wait to see what you say about this one. This one is nourishment versus consumption. And this is, we're going to use the goddess Anahita from this Persian goddess, and river goddess, right? So you'll know, this is also a Nile story, right?
Yeah.
So river overflows its banks, right? Creates rich soil, right? That's great. That is nourishment. We give, right? And that nourishes those around us. We give from ourselves, and that nourishes those around us, our coworkers, our friends, our partners, our children. But then, at some point, the river can actually just like flood shit.
Yeah.
And cause damage. And all of that abundant water that nourishes and gives life actually begins to consume that which it gave life to. And so I love this one because it's a nature-based goddess. And so again, it's just how it is. We all know that floods can be good. Sure. And we also know that floods can kill. Right. And so where is it that in my giving, it actually is to the point of nourishment? And where is it in my giving that it is actually to consume? It's really a shade of what we were just talking about. But I love the river example because the river is just a natural force. The river gonna river. And I think sometimes we, especially now, G, like sometimes we think more parenting is always the answer.
Yeah.
More time,
Right.
more attention,
Right.
more gifts, whatever.
Right. Yeah, that imagery of the river, I feel like we were like at the end of the webinar and I was like grappling with rage, and then I was grappling with this dynamic of Persephone, and then we were talking about a river metaphor that like really landed with me, and I was like, oh my God, I have so much to feel about and think about. Oh my gosh. But I think like that image of like an overflowing river taking everything with it is just like a really important, for me, way to like to ground, right? I think it fits into this metaphor and this thing that I'm constantly working with, where it's just like I give and I give and I give and I give, but I don't have anything left for me, And so like when a river overflows, it just goes and goes and goes, and it's actually damaging to everybody when you're, pouring yourself so much that you don't have enough to pour back into yourself. You're actually hurting not just yourself, you're hurting everybody, And I think that like nourishment versus overconsumption. I mean, like even bringing that metaphor into my own relationships with different substances like that, or different ways of unwinding, right? Like that careful balance. It's just, yeah. This goddess, I felt the most like there's just still more there for me to unpack. I think like there's more. I'm like still grappling with that conversation and sort of like what I can learn from her. Um, but yeah, I think it's just like how can I turn it when the river is overflowing? How can I redirect the water back to myself? Right. Like, how can I
Right.
make sure that whatever I'm giving to someone or giving to whatever, I'm giving equal, if not more, to myself? And if anybody has been able to successfully and consistently do that, please let me know. And how did you do that? And what's your secret?
Send us an email. We
Well,
want to
yeah,
know.
yeah. Please call in. No, I just, because it's hard. It's challenging. It's just challenging. But yeah.
It is. Oh, I mean, just so much of what you said. But the thing that I hadn't actually thought about was things like substances or, and I go right to food, right? Like that just feels like the easiest place to think about like
Totally.
nourishment versus overconsumption or consumption, right? Like what
Right.
is it that feels good? And we know this, and we know this for ourselves, right? But it can be really hard not to fool ourselves that if we just give a little bit more, it's actually going to help the person we love versus deplete us, perhaps stunt them,
Right.
right? And so this really, I also want to work with this one a little bit more. There's
Yeah.
something really there for me around like, oh, I think I've just been like over parenting and over loving, right? As the strategy has been really dominant in my life, really dominant in my life. And so like you said, how do I begin? Like when the floodwaters recede, like how do I begin to bring that back into myself? If anyone's going to be over consumed or over loved, how about it's me? And give
Right.
my kids plenty of love. Look,
Yeah.
those children get it all the time.
Yeah.
And how do I bring some of it back to me?
Yeah.
I love that.
And trusting that your baseline is enough. You know what I mean? I think it's just like is in parenting, it sounds like is important, like what you can give is enough. And I think as you were talking, I was just thinking about like, I'm teaching yoga more than I have been in my journey. I'm teaching like 3 days a week, right? And I'm like subbing and jumping into things. And today I got another offer to sub, and I had to be like, no, I can't do it. Like I have to say no, because as I pour out, I try to do all these things, I actually am taking away from my own practice, and I'm taking away from my own presence in as a teacher and my own growth. And like, yeah, it's just like, yes, I want to do more and more and more, but I have to more and more towards myself,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you said no.
It's so hard.
So hard.
It's so hard. I am so not great at saying no, but I'm really, really trying to practice getting better at it. And
Yeah.
especially with something I'm so passionate about, it's just hard to say no. But I also just like
Yeah.
want to be the best I can be, you know?
100%. Because if you don't practice, like this just feels like such a concrete example. So you say yes to this, you
Yeah,
don't practice. Like in the short term, it looks like you're the only person who has the impact. But in the long term, like your successive classes, and they don't have a practicing yoga teacher. They have a teacher who teaches, right?
exactly.
And so that's like a really straight line. I want to say one last thing before we close. Well, a couple things, but
Yeah.
one is that, and I'm not holding up 70s parenting as the be all end all. I was parented in the 70s. There's lots of crazy stuff happening there. But like now,
Mm-hmm.
working parents parent more hours a day than stay at home parents did in the 70s. So we're actually working and parenting more than we were actually
Wow.
parenting. So like there's something actually too about like letting kids figure it out. Like I loved figuring it
Yeah.
out on my own.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Anyway,
Yeah.
so I just thought I read
That's
that
so
statistic recently
interesting.
and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, what have we, and it's, it's capitalism, it's all the things, right?
Yeah.
But, all right, so we're going to close now. A couple of things. One is that we are going to do one more kind of polarity on July 22nd with this conscious devouring mother piece. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about Anahita, and then we're going to talk about Sekhmet and Hathor and what guidance can look like in this polarity, right? Like what does it look like to actually guide versus overrule? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so we have that webinar coming up, open to the public. If folks are interested, join us. You just, on my website, TuesdayRivera.com, under offerings, it'll be like the first thing. Just send us a quick note. We'll get you the Zoom. I'll also send out a newsletter if folks want to register. But please consider joining us for that. It's free, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, date 15 on Tuesday, July 22nd. We're going to dive into this a little bit more to close it up.
Yeah.
And we always give people a practice before they leave. So I want to, because I think the sacred rage versus toxic anger is often the one that people are like, oh,
Oh shit. Yeah.
oh shit. So,
Yeah.
um, so I want to give people, and we'll just like this, I feel like let's just wade into the pool. We don't have to like jump in and like, what's the thing you're angry about? Go like meditate on it, right? It's like actually, I want you, when you're listening to this podcast, some point between now and the end of the day, like this is just like 2 or 3 minutes. I want you to think about something. It could be something that made you angry, but it could not have reached that level. As G and I talked about, often we actually don't allow things to reach that level, but something that irritated you, something that like made you want to curse, right? Something that kind of like at least approximated anger. We had one right before this podcast. I had a terrible time technology-wise. And I just want you to like close your eyes and like breathe and like bring that to mind. Actually bring it to mind. So you're just allowing yourself to think about what happened to the situation. And then I just want you to notice if there are any sensations in your body that accompany it. And if there are, so for example, like now, if I think about the tech issue, like I can feel my face like scrunching, like and just like it feels like right in the front of my face, and I just feel kind of mad about it. And so bring the situation to mind, see if there are any physical sensations. So for me right now, like it's like right at the front of my face, and actually just let yourself experience the sensation without moving away from it. You might want to give it words. Oh, I feel like a heaviness between my nose and eyebrows. Oh, it feels kind of hot or heavy, or it feels tingly or it feels cool, whatever it is. But just get curious about what are the sensations in your body that accompany your thinking about that particular situation. Nothing to do, just to notice it, not to try to get rid of those sensations, not to try to do anything except become familiar with them. It's like just becoming familiar with what your body has to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you might add, G?
I think when you've sort of like had enough of feeling the feeling in your body, like if there's any just kind of like movement afterwards, whether it's like just like shaking it out, sending it to the earth, if there's a yoga posture that feels really good, or just any kind of shape in your body that feels good. I think just showing your body that the time of that is concluded, and we can
Great.
move forward would be my addition to the
Perfect.
invitation. Yeah.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can't do it today, do it tomorrow. Just 2 or 3 minutes. Bring a situation to mind. Feel the sensation. When you've had enough, get rid of it. Move it through your body.
Yes.
Thank you, G. It's been so good to have you on. I so appreciate
such a pleasure.
it. And thank you, friends, for listening. It's great to have you. I'm getting great feedback from the podcast. Please share this episode with a friend who might be or have or be interested in a devouring mother. And tune in next time. And just so glad. I feel honored when people listen. Thanks for listening. Thanks. Also, July 22nd, 7 p.m., the next webinar about the conscious devouring mother will go from here. You don't have to have gone to the first one. We'd love to see you there. TuesdayRivera.com.